Generals. This is Gamer 1745 here. And hello, Arno. Yes, you're first. Yes, you're first. We are checking to see. It says excellent connection over on YouTube. Getting good stuff there. Hopefully it's good on Twitch as well. Okay, and as you see, we're going to be playing some Panzer Corps. Yes, it is Arno. He is here. Okay. I have been playing the Burden of Command last couple of weekends. I like the game. How do I? A little frustrated with its UI, and still I don't know how much more of the training there is to do. But I wanted to do just something different. I don't know if we're going to go back to that. And Arno is over on still nowhere. Okay, gotta talk to me not during the stream, Arno, about the mod thing. And I do want to do that, but you gotta get me some other time. Excuse me. So, there are different modes now with Panzer Corps, Frontlines, War Stories, and of course you have the base game and the Axis operations. We just came out very recently, a week or so ago, this is the Cyrenaica Frontlines that we're going to try today. And let's see, in the summer of 1940, a German attack on Great Britain seems imminent. Seeking a place among victors, Italy launches a surprise offensive from Libya into British-controlled Egypt. This marks the beginning of the North Africa campaign, one of the major turning points of World War II. Relived the opening stages of this historic conflict, Operation E and Operation Compass, like never before. Double-sided campaign, which side will you choose? Well, we're going to see about playing the Italians. Compass, I believe, is the British one, so we're going to play this. It's partially for the challenge, maybe heavily for the challenge, but it's also to look and see about playing and talking about Italy in World War II and the unpreparedness that both Italy faces, and I would say much of the world faces right now, with the looming conflicts and the unpreparedness for war. And what is it? Civis Pacem Parabellum. I'm sure I got that wrong. I keep trying to memorize it. If you want peace, prepare for war. And I firmly believe that. Okay. Invasion of Britain by Germany. Yes, we just read that, right? Or version thereof it. Yeah, no rumble right now. Okay, yes. Let's pull a book off my shelf here, but nope. Okay, we'll just go with gamer. Panzer General. I don't need overstring, so we can do that as a negative. I like terrain expert because get some entrenchments in any ground. Master Blitzkrieg movement points. Probably what's old guard? Okay. Let's do Master Blitzkrieg. Is there any other? No, 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 nope, no, no, no. And assign maximum 1 hero point. No. Ruthless, never accept surrender. That might almost be one, but okay. I think that'll be it. That's my normal sort of. Excuse me. Still getting over a cough. Okay. City Aziz, Libya, 13 September 1940. Buongiorno, Generale. The attack order has arrived and time has now come. We are invading Egypt. We will show that Italy has the right to a place in the world, and the place is alongside the great powers. Our troops are on high alert near the Libyan border, and everything is ready for the invasion. We will make the British eat dust. Our motorized divisions are grouped near City Aziz. I hope I'm pronouncing that somewhat correctly. In the northwest of the theater of operations, along with the deployment of aircraft, while other detachments are grouped near Bardia in the northeast of the area. The objective for this mission is simple: conquer all British settlements in the region. Okay. Capture Fort Capezzo, capture Solom. There's one more matter to discuss. During the movement towards the Egyptian border, some detachments were overwhelmed by sandstorm and are currently missing. If you have the chance to spot them, we can establish contact by bringing our units into close proximity, allowing you to bring them back under your command. Okay, retrieve units dispersed in the desert. Bonus hero. Now we'll let Generale Berti instruct you further on the mission. We will meet once. Thanks, General Graziani. I will take it from here. Now back to the attack plan. This is the borderline between between Libya and Egypt. This small British outpost has been built on the border. It would be easy to target for our forces. Excuse me. This happens sometimes when I first start really talking in the day. Okay. This small British outpost has been built on the border. It should be an easy target for our forces. Retaking of Musad and Fort Capezzo would be a way to test our strength, or test the strength of the British troops, and an opportunity to deploy reinforcements. Additionally, capturing the airport would give a chance for our airplanes to extend their action range drastically. Once controlled the border, it established a choice of how to proceed with the operation. Yours, Generale. A frontal attack is possible both from the north and the south. Plateau divides the region. The southern, okay. If you could cut through the open desert, may be safer, but a slower maneuver. Coordinated attacks would be a good way to take the British by surprise and leave them no place for resupply. The African desert is wide open and hostile place, providing minimal cover. Additionally, the region features numerous elevations that restrict movement of armored vehicles. The British can rely on air support. Plan carefully the deployment of your forces. You have your orders generale. Let's show the world the Italian valor dismissed. Okay, Arno's been saying something. Okay, haha. You say buongiorno. I instantly think of Captain Alberto Bertorelli from Hello, Hello. Absolutely, Arno, yes. He should be one of the heroes here. Yes, I actually have a Coke here, but yes. All right. Okay, we have Emanuele Marino. He is a consolidator, which um, can consolidate more normal strength into a single unit, thus increasing maximum over strength unit can have by +5. I've not seen that trait before, and unfortunately, I have no one. I can't use it because I have no over strength in this, but oh well. Okay, fast learner. Let's get more experience. Flag killer. +5 when attacking the enemy flags. Cheap replacement, so we can put this in an expensive unit and get replacements cheap. Right, okay, so mentioning all of that, okay, we have currently 33 out of 50 total slots. What can we buy here? And we have 2,200 prestige points. Oh, good. We have a motor. I think artillery will be very useful. What does our aircraft look like? We have a fighter and a tactical bomber. Okay, and we look like we're facing some okay, so let's see what we can do here. Well, mostly better. Only 10 more points. 3 slots. So let's see about purchasing that to help with. Is this where our air is currently? I see one aircraft. Should have 2. Oh, there's the other. Okay, that's the bomber. So we'll put the fighter up with the bomber. I know the other one's a fighter too. Okay, now. Tanks. Close. What do we have? We have L333s. Okay, that's what we currently have. That would be this one. No, that would be this one. This is the LF. So just one of these, and we will stick them down with our armored forces. Now, I think artillery is going to become rather useful. Okay. They all basically have range of 2, and the mortars are, how interesting. That tank looks like Chuck Norris pop. Honey, it down look under. Okay. Hmm. Engineers, these guys have trucks. They have trucks. These guys are just walking, riding. Okay, trucks. So, let's go with this. This. Give them down there. Let's go with this and this, because a little bit conscious of prestige costs. Put them out front, just sort of presuming they were going to move infantry or other things out in front of them. Now this thing here, this Cyrenaica, didn't show up until much, much later in the war. I'm pretty damn sure. I don't know about these trikes. I just don't know about them. I'm not saying they weren't there or anything. I just don't know. Okay. Garis, Italian engineers, Italian infantry. Okay, where is my... Yeah, the anti-tank pieces there. Let's see about getting another one. Yeah, just one with that. Here. We are still mindful of the idea of the aircraft. Okay. Here we have 6 points left. Lots or whatever. Do we do bombers? Now we might be able to find more infantry or units just out in the desert. Even how bad these are, I think we will welcome them. So let's do that. That leaves us 4 points. Why is this so expensive? Okay, well, it's better at anti-tank. That is expensive. But we only have 4 points, so we get 2 and 3. So we do, boy. Okay, well, the only infantry we could get. Okay, so well with 4 points. This is better anti-tank, not that bad of. I think what we will do is another air. Yeah, we'll just spend the points. Give this some anti-air down here as well. And yeah, I'm just worried about the British air. Okay. So now that we've done this, we have 3 heroes. Consolidator, I don't know. Let's put him here. So he'll get that unit trained up quickly. Now, for flag killer. Flag killers are going to be ones that are attacking cities or towns or whatever, mostly. So some sort of urban type environment. So that will put him here, because that'll probably be infantry doing that directly. And for consolidator, let's just put him here just because we might as well. Right, now what I want to do is save. Sorry about all that. Okay, so we save, resume game. Okay, I think we have done. We really want to take that and that. We basically need to. We could come across the desert there, but all right. Well, move reconnaissance force here. Okay, so we have around the high ground. We spotted some Morris armored cars, and we cannot get to them this turn unless we're going to fly down here and escort them. The bombers, that is. Okay. Yeah, let's add boldly into the position. Let's see if we can get. Okay. Generale, we found one of our dispersed units, remaining 2 units. Okay. Next. They have been reassigned under your command and are willing to fight as auxiliaries in this battle, remaining 2. Okay, cool. That's They're not a core unit, but they are with us now. Hmm. Yeah, I think that line of vehicles protects the. Excuse me, man. It's actually coughing up a lot of morning phlegm. Now, these guys just get to march forward through the desert. Yeah, drinking helps some. I hope for not a counterattack anytime soon up to there. I know hope is not necessarily a good strategy, but still. Okay, that will protect most of the trucks from air attack in case there are British that are based here or wherever. I think that would be the only base that can get them. Well, hello. Okay, well, hello, like I said, hello. Okay, what do we have here? Vickers Mark IIs. I think these are armed just with machine guns, not even 50s, but if they are protecting much, we'll have to see about that attack a little bit later. Right. Okay. Good. Move the Vita anti-tank gun there. The other lost units are up there. Okay, well. I think it's best to get up and give air cover to all of that. Hey, Ragar, how you doing? Yes, more Panzer Corps. Why they had 8 years of development. I think it was a really small team. Underfunded, I think, as well. I'm that's just purely I'm guessing. I have no knowledge of any funding one way or the other. So we have that. High ground gives lots of area coverage. These guys will. Fly down here. Let's bomb this. Good. Escort. I have no experience, so we don't need to spend money on high quality reinforcements. Engage. Well, let's move you guys up. That was just a raid to get these guys rebased somewhere else. Now, here's our bomber. We come here. Where do we go there? Goody, overrun. Okay, let's see. What did the tracker saying? Let's see. Well, I had to return damaged graphics card because fan was broken before I opened the box. They found higher blood sugar in some reason and headphones. But instead of card pushing one point in my head, return them fast. So basically, half dead. Right. No, we can't. Oh wow. Okay. Well, they sold me a damaged graphic card in a box sealed by the manufacturer. Hmm. Wow. Okay, well, that answers, because if we hit here with the air power, then like that. Moving there to use its reconnaissance value. And they fled way back. Okay, well, at least that pushes them back. Now here, well, yay. Okay, good. These guys can move down here, support against any counterattack. They can come down and escort, and aerial cover them. Okay. Yeah. Videos with real exploding tanks. I see brave Italians manage to push back vile British soldiers. Absolutely. Italian army had more success than in real life. Yes. Yes. Okay, there's our anti-tank guns. These guys can move to here, still deploy. Anti-tank guns can come to here, still deploy. The artillery can come to here and deploy. So this way, these get attacked. I don't know if they're going to come after my guys out here in the desert. or push up on me here. Now, question is do I come down here and battle, or do I come over here and battle, which is already suppressed? Well, these guys are fairly weak, but we're not going to fully take them out. We're here, and this would maybe cause us a casualty to the squadron. So we're going to try to, well, we got a casualty anyways, but try to work them down. Didn't go as well as hoped. Much of the area covered. I think that's still considered high ground, is it? I don't know, guess not. Do that. I guess that is the best. You can't. But just some of my lost forces are up there. I'm going to maybe go with Car survives long enough. Okay, you. But you're not a tank. They may be out here. I don't know. We'll see if we can find them. But I do want to sort of cross that area off. My bomb. My fighter. Let's bomb. He can get down to here. Good. Big artillery piece. Ah. Very good. Okay, our Ascari del Celio. Come down here. Let's. Down. How lovely. Okay. Yeah, that's worth attacking. Oh, here. Maybe I should have attacked with them. I know I still have these guys here that might. Okay, we could get here, not there though. Got to keep concentration of force in mind. So you're going to come up to here. That'll give me reconnaissance bonus. Reconnaissance, they surrender, very well can attack fleeing enemies, as it were. Okay, well, you know, we're gonna let's see. Well, we really haven't gotten much stars yet, so we're going to do that. And oh shit. Okay, my bomber outflew my escort range, but I did take this, so it's forced them to, well, that's probably within range. Okay, we'll see what happens. No, oh, no, I didn't want to do that. Okay, so we got artillery here. The artillery can get to here. These guys can get to here. So their engineers are going to move into town, get out of the trucks. The artillery is going to, okay, the tanks can come to here. Tankets. Let's not overdo the turn. The anti-tank guns, so they don't run and attack the tanks. Directly. Hopefully it survives the turn. The artillery will be most useful over here. Have this. I think we will rebase here. I'll give you better coverage down into here next turn. All right. He survived, but that was a bad move, an expensive one too, I'm sure. Hey, well. You drive up to there. We're going to just check out. Look for lost units. Know what to do first. Well, this is an anti-tank gun. Always, I consider it sort of a ballet of which things to do first. Okay, how much? 112. We'll do the 112. We'll get you. Okay. do that. Shift to there. That will allow us to bring these guys up to here. Shift to there. I think these guys, okay, they can't attack, but they are here. Got a lot of artillery backup. Not great, but good. But I'm hoping that will weaken this enough. All right, well. I'm gonna hit this gun. Keep that encircled. Use this here. Okay, we've hit that some more. Well, check this tank because this guy gets all that coverage. And well, protect what we can protect. Can you find up here? Okay, so artillery, tanks, infantry. don't put tanks in towns. I don't know what they were thinking of when they did that. Concentrate our fire. You can make it to here. Okay, well, as you can see, we might be able to come in and cut off a lot of forces here. Flow through the dunes. I think we should... No, you rebase to here. You rebase to here. You rebase to here. Okay, I think we'll be able to hold this, because even though we just have a L3, we've got artillery backup here. They can get to here, the anti-tank guns. So we will move the tanks up to there so they are supported. They've moved. I don't want them in their trucks because I'm very worried that we'll be air attacked. No, we're going to move up here to give better coverage to all of that instead of focusing on that aircraft. Okay, so now comes the part of the stream where Gamer rants. And this is also part of, you know, that these live streams are therapy for Gamer. Governments and militaries. What is it? Francis Fukuyama wrote a book called The End of History, which I've never read because I didn't believe it. I mean, I could still read it, but he did so much damage with that book, with the end of history. Whig history also has done so much damage to humanity. Now, there may be, and I know, hey gamer, what are you talking about? History of Whigs, and how is that important, and whatnot. It's not just me trying to be obscure and sound important or something, but I'm trying to explain how we've got to where we are. Whig history. The Whigs were the, shall we say, left party in Britain. And Whig history promoted the idea that man was on a progressive track, not just technologically, but sociologically, on a progressive track to betterment. Not that there weren't faulty steps, and the betterment of mankind. Now, so Whig history bleeds into our viewpoints, including things like Star Trek. Yes, the the wondrous future where you have no money and there's no want, and people just do whatever they please, because why not? Because we have, you can always, just walk to your in-house replicator and replicate anything you want. And it's only psychologically damaged people that are problems, and you send those off to mental institutions to get cured. And they're just cured, and everything is fine and dandy and okay. I don't even know if that's a good idea for humanity, but I don't believe in fundamental changes in human behavior. The only one I can really spot out, and it's mostly the Western world, yes, big change is the no longer acceptance of slavery, and that's taken a few thousand years. And even still to this day, we still, in the West, will largely agree that slavery, for a just reason, is acceptable. Meaning you can be sentenced to hard labor or something like that for a crime. Instead of just locking you in the cell, you can sentence somebody to, to work. Compulsory labor like that. Well, and we also have, the idea of drafting people for the that's different than slavery, but and I'm all for not having slavery. I mean, that's great. I mean, I'm not trying to minimize that, but that it was going to be the rules-based order and history, as in wars and conflicts, that's just over, and nations are all functionally equal. So yeah, of course, in the EU, Germany and France has more weight because they have bigger economies. But hey, the Netherlands, Belgium, Portugal, they'll have equal sort of votes kind of thing, we have to all agree upon anything, and so, yeah. No, people, no, I'm sorry. It's a fiction. It's a fiction that was put out by university professors and those that wanted to have the U.S. as sort of that maintainer of rules-based order. And it was both. The U.S. was going to have to, militarily define that rules-based order and agree that, hey, if Denmark objects to some action in the world, they have the equal voice that the U.S. would have, of course. That's sort of the, and I know this is getting a long way away, but I'm trying to say is history isn't over. The other thing that modern governments since 1920 have not only just at times wanted to experiment militarily on new forms of fighting. Do we give bicycles to our troops or something like that? Yeah, okay, that's fine. But really, it's post World War I, definitely post World War II, that I think it's a mix of things. It's one, because of this sort of rules-based order, governments don't take the military seriously, so they can do sociological experiments with it. Like, hey, dudes, whatever you want, it's cool. If the officer says line up and you don't want to line up today, well then no problem. We're all self-starting individuals, and hey, trans this or ideological that. We need to make sure that we have, enough non-whites as pilots in the RAF, and we don't have enough pilots in the RAF. Well, we only have white volunteers that qualify, so we don't have enough pilots because we won't, And they will say, and I've heard this a lot from Democrats, if you have $25 billion or $1 trillion or whatever it is to spend on defense, you should be able to spend twice that on the people, on medical health care. People, there's only one indispensable element of the government. All the rest of the government can fuck off tomorrow if you don't pay attention to the one indispensable part of the government. I literally mean it. All the rest can just fuck off. We don't care. It's unimportant. It can just be all, people are ranting and raving about Doge, but we can just shut every part of the government down except one. The military. Every bit of the rest of the government can be turned off tomorrow. Just turn it off tomorrow. Because if you don't have a military, you don't have a government. Okay? Oh, well, who's going to invade the Netherlands? Well, yeah, that's going back to this rules-based order in that, America will protect us. Well, I hope you all realize that that's gone, okay? America ain't going to necessarily protect you. Not that they won't protect you, but you can't rely upon American protection. So, governments don't take the military seriously. They, and this is obviously partially due to the people, because much in the Western world the governments are elected. And I was talking to my friend Eric. Hi, Eric, if you ever watch this, I don't know. And he was talking, he's a big fan of the Krag Jorgensen rifle, and that's cool and all, and talking about Norway. And he's going, talking about the possible ways to upgrade the rifle, because basically that's a 19th century rifle that was still the main rifle of Norway at the beginning of World War II and when they're invaded. No functional changes, really. I'm not even sure if they changed the ammunition. I may have probably changed it over to a Spitzer ammunition or something, but... And he was, saying, oh, well, they just didn't have the money. They just didn't have the money. No, they had the money. Now, their civilian budget didn't have the money, but they had the money. They could have issued bonds, which are basically just loans, but a dispersed loan in the sense that an individual can buy one bond, something like a union pension fund can buy 10,000 bonds. A government can buy other governments' bonds because, hey, there's going to be a return on that, an interest paid on it, and some governments have more cash and they can, buy other governments' bonds. So they could have floated a bond easily and upgraded the rifle. Now, we can look at, and I'll get to the chat here in a moment. We can easily look at the second half of the 19th century, especially if you look at France and Germany, the rapid, as in, like in 5 years, a rifle, I want to be specific, a rifle becomes outdated. And then you got to get all new rifles 5 years later. And then 5 years later, you got to get all new rifles again. And then 5 years later, you got to get all new rifles again. And there does make a certain amount of sense that if you're a country, and I'm going to continue to use Norway here, that isn't in the, the center threat of big conflicts, because they're, you really have to look, to understand the French and German history, you've got to go way back. I mean, to the, 16th century or more, and definitely it's continuing through the Napoleonic era, through the 19th century, not just, Franco-Prussian War, they'll probably do round two. No, you have a lot of this conflict that's going on. And so they sort of kind of have to chase the latest thing. Because now if they knew that, we just wait 5 years, we will have a better thing. If they knew that, of course, you probably would have waited. And it probably would have been smart to wait. But yeah, countries like Sweden, like Norway, because they don't have a lot of immediate threats, they can sit back for a number of years once they've done, a modernization to like the Krag Jorgensen rifle. And then sit back for a number of years and see the fallout, see, hey, smokeless powder. I know the Krag Jorgensen started as a smokeless powder gun, but, bottlenose to Spitzer bullets to what's the next thing, because you don't necessarily know. And yeah, okay, but 60 years, okay, well, I don't know if it's quite 60, 50 years, that's a bit much. And yeah, okay, World War I, they weren't involved, and, okay, well, let's hope we're not involved in World War II as it's breaking out. Hope is not a strategy. And I'm hopeful on things here. And you can always hope for good outcomes. But at some point, if you want to have a country, you've got to take it seriously. And what I will get to some of this, the chats here. Those of you out there, and Beam Slam, who's often here, is rather upset with the U.S. because he's upset that the rules-based order is not continuing. Well, okay, Norway, build some nuclear subs and some nuclear missiles and all of that stuff, and sit back and go, yeah, we don't have a big army, but we'll nuke you if you disobey the rules-based order. Okay, if you're that concerned about the rules-based order, you build a rules-based order. But that's not going to be the case. And if you look at, you got to look at world, this is what, I go back to the mod that I made for Hearts of Iron 3 Black Ice, to the very first series, proper series that I made for Black Ice, my Third Reich Events mod, YouTube series, to all this, have all been a warning. Now, I know I'm just talking, some of the videos have gotten 10,000 views, but, they're not really had an impact. No one's listening to me. Maybe my venues or whatever aren't good. No, I don't live in my mother's basement, but yeah, I'm just, I'm not in a think tank or in Washington, D.C. or some sort of an important thing. But people, realize, in basically December 1932, you have a divided Germany, shall we say, but one that is not a major threat to anybody. Yeah, they had a lot of secret armies and etc., 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 but it's not really a threat to anybody. 32. 7 years later, you have the outbreak of World War II. And we can look back, even in a time like 1935 or 1936. In 35 you have the kicking the French out of the Saarland, and in 36, in the beginning of 36, you have the remilitarization of the Rhineland. So in 36. From 32 to 36, in 4 years, you go from a mildly irritated Germany, government about, the Versailles Treaty and whatnot, but they're playing along with the the rules-based order of the League of Nations. They're not a member because, World War I reasons. I believe they weren't. I know Hitler, maybe Hitler left it. I don't know. Sorry if I'm getting that a little wrong. But from that, the war to end all wars, World War I idea, for 4 years you've now created a change. And I know that this is why the establishment is shitting themselves in Germany over the AfD, because they're worried, is this just another Nazi party? I truly believe a bunch of them are worried that. Others know that it's not, but I'm not absolutely sure. I don't think it's a disguised Nazi party. I just think it's a Helmut Kohl era CDU of Germany, pre-Merkel CDU of Germany party for the most part. But I may be wrong. I'm not an expert on the thing. But so what I'm saying is like in 4 to 7 years, you can have a drastic reorder of a country. You can have a country that you think is one way that flips to something entirely different. I know the world is panicked over Trump. But what if you really had something that flips? The governments have not been taking the the military seriously, whether it's the naval, the air force, the army, other strategic assets. The U.S. has its space force, and from my understanding, since it was, although created under Trump officially, it's really a super woke. I mean, the Air Force is somewhat woke, anyways, but a super woke follow on from the Air Force because it was really staffed up under Biden. And you may go, what is, Denmark doesn't have any spaceships. Okay, true. Just a second. But France has a space program, and even if they're not putting people in space, most of the Space Force people, at least that I know of in the U.S., aren't people that go into space. They're people that fight that sort of outside of the atmosphere warfare space. Knock out anti-satellite missiles and satellites to the satellite force. Do you make it part of the army? Maybe if you're Romanian, you hardly have a navy, but or do you make it part? If you're Britain or if you're France and have a navy, do you want to make it part of the army and it's all prioritized on the army? And when the navy wants to know about, hey, are there any ships around my ships? Oh, what? You're worried about the ocean? Why? So, or do you make it part of the navy and then it's focused on naval stuff, or do you divide it and everybody has space, or do you create a dedicated space platform that for support, whether it's the Air Force, the Navy, or the Army, or whatever else, it's supporting that kind of thing. And that's because it's not just the digital space, it's the it's observation of spy satellites to anti-satellites to whatever else it may be up there. So nations, and so I'm looking at Europe, I'm looking even at America, especially America the last 20 some years. They had sequestration, if you guys don't know. Part of that is we're going to keep the budget sort of the same. We're not going to spend any more. It was sort of it's a bipartisan plan. And so all of the military funding was pushed towards Iran and, Iraq and Afghanistan wars that neglected other elements of the military. So although they were taking fighting seriously, it was very narrow focused. So yeah, why am I even saying all other than therapy, getting this stuff out? Governments, and I think it's partially, and politicians, I think it's partially that they believed in essence the end of history, and also I believe because a lot of them are left wing, believe that they actually want to hobble the military to make it impossible for military intervention as a practicality. And they think that whether it's France or Brazil or I don't know, Indonesia, but France or Brazil, who's going to attack them? What are or a bunch of I'm trying to think of Nigerians are going to get on a bunch of rowboats and row across the South Atlantic and invade Brazil, or the remnants of Russia are somehow going to get enough amphibious warfare capability and get out of, yeah, they have some decent amphibious warfare ships, some, but enough to put an invasion force and land it on Brazil that could do any good, so, and America is just, it's impotent. It isn't going to invade us. So what do we care about the military other than just have a, token military? Let's spend it on, whatever, corruption probably in Brazil's case, but or if you're France, who's going to invade France? Spain? Morocco? Who's going to invade France? We can do all kinds of things as long as we keep, some, French Foreign Legion types ready to go to, rescue some French people in some embassy somewhere to get them out when things go bad in the lesser peoples of the world. And so they've let the militaries go, and they're unprepared for war. And I would say the U.S. as well, because the U.S. long ago has stopped building. Hello, that looks like Greek alphabet. I can't quite read that. And hello, MMDB. I'll get to the chat in just a moment. I know I said that a while ago. That the U.S. stopped building M1 Abrams. We stopped, long ago, 20 years ago, something, I don't know. With the idea that we have so many of them that we don't need any more, and all we need to do is upgrade the ones we have. And to the point of putting on new armor packs, new types of armor applied to them, and I don't know, something like a ton of weight that they were saving and upgrading from copper wires running through the tanks to fiber optics or something. So making the tank either lighter or being able to make it heavy or keep it the same weight by adding other, whether it's features or more armor or whatever to the tank. And now I think it's kicking them in the ass that they didn't do it. Now, Rumsfeld, I liked Rumsfeld as a defense, Minister of Defense or Secretary of Defense, whatever. I liked him, but I thought he was wrong. He wanted to get rid of the Abrams because tanks were done. History's done. It's interventions in the sandbox. That's part of it. Well, I don't know for sure because I'm not up on it. But the most expensive tank in the world in like the 90s and early 2000s, and it still may be, was the Japanese main battle tank. It was more expensive than the U.S. Abrams. It was more expensive than any tank out there. It was almost so expensive you might think it was a boondoggle. Corruption and whatever. And I don't know the price. It doesn't matter the price of the tank. But it was the most expensive tank. You know why it was the most expensive tank? They made something like 12 of them a year. They have a whole factory set up, and they crank out like 12 a year. Why? Because the Japanese understood that we can't just decide to tomorrow go, God damn, the world's a rough place. We need more tanks. What, we don't have a tank factory? Oh, well, we'll buy them from the U.S. Oh, wait a minute. The U.S. is using all their tank factories up, or they've shut down their tank factories? Oh, shit. Oh, okay. We'll buy them from China to fight China with the... oops. So they took the very rational decision to keep the tank factory open, crank out a few tanks every year, so that if they need to, And it's going to take a while, obviously, to produce them. But if you already have a tank factory and you're already paying the salaries of the guys who know how to build the tank. Now that may not be running that tank factory at 24/7 like during World War II. Round the clock, 7 days a week, cranking out tanks as fast as you can. You probably need to train up more people, but at least you have a cadre of people in there that know how to build the tank. And you have all of the factory elements just sitting there ready to build the tank. And which I always thought that was brilliant. Because yes, Japan could have in a 10-year period or whatever period built all the tanks it thought it needed plus a reserve. Go, okay, we've got that. And then what? Build a new model to just replace the old model? I don't know. Maybe if there's enough change, in weapons technology. But we're seeing the literal bottleneck in the Ukraine war being the inability to build or to manufacture enough artillery shells. It's production of artillery shells is the bottleneck. They could shoot more rounds if they had them, but all of the allies of Ukraine and anywhere they could think of buying them, that would be willing to sell them to them, cannot build artillery rounds fast enough for that one war. And we still also have the Gaza thing going on. We've got wars in Sudan and South Sudan. We've got wars in Ethiopia, unless they've all sort of, because there had been the Tigray, and then there's another civil war. Civil wars in which, 30, 50,000 people have died in the last year or two. There's been a couple civil wars breaking out in Ethiopia. You've got the 10-sided civil war in Burma. If you guys think the world is at peace right now, no. And I'm sure there's other wars out there going on. And so, if a few more things flare up around the world that people cared about, nobody cares about Sudan or Ethiopia if they all kill themselves, that's whatever. But if we really cared about it, we do not have the ammunition making capacity. And I think it was Denmark has setting up a new ammunition factory or something in Norway, or to buy more, to build it. So, and this is, I'm getting back to, I know this long way around, is Italy was woefully unprepared for World War II. Probably one of the most unprepared for World War II who voluntarily entered the war. The U.S. was attacked in Pearl Harbor, so it wasn't voluntary entry. The Soviet Union, well, yeah, they sort of voluntarily entered by, the Winter War and invading Poland, but Germany attacked. Germany was unprepared, but not nearly as bad as Italy. And France and Britain, well, they had a defense treaty with Poland, and however unprepared they were, which they were, it was sort of a defensive situation. And we could talk about places like Romania and Hungary, but those were heavily pressured by Germany. It wasn't quite join or we'll attack you, but it was a lot of pressure. And so, why does Italy enter the war? Well, of course it was because of Mussolini, and he had enough of the monopoly on political power that he could demand it. And yes, he thought, he enters the war basically as Germany is entering Paris. Also, as Germany is entering Paris, you have Franco taking out the international city of Tangiers. Tangiers was a sort of a League of Nations set up international city similar to Danzig in up in Poland, East Prussia area, however you want to say it. I know you guys know, but and so it was sort of like, oh, Franco was like, oh well, we can do this while everybody's paying attention to Paris falling. That was just a little maneuver to get a small city in north of Morocco that the French didn't have control over, sort of international city. So Mussolini, thinks that, oh, the war is almost over, let me just enter it as it's closing. But still, it's this government neglect of the military kind of thing. Let me check out the chat, because I do care and I do want to react to what you guys have been saying. Okay, let's see. Ragar, ST officers are highly qualified personnel. New generations are victims of punishing people with different colors and body shapes. Into crews, okay, I don't know exactly what ST officers are, but yes. They were doing it for the privilege and fun, which had more value than money. Okay. Gamer says, Ernest says, true gamer, that's why we started on extensive rearmament programs. Well, yeah, I just, it was yesterday I saw a, Deutsches Welle English broadcast thing talking about German rearmament. Yeah, they're starting on it, and they're starting to be serious. But a friend of mine was in the German army, for political reasons got kicked out because he wasn't quite, I don't know, green enough, left enough, whatever. Are they going to bring him back? No, probably not. There's a lot of institutional knowledge that has been lost. Not that the German army is entirely lost of it. I'm not saying that, but you purge the army of undesirables, shall we say, from the leftist viewpoint. It takes generations to build a good army. It's seriously generations. It's not just, can we produce enough artillery shells? And Arno continues, I know if we do the coming 5% on defense, you guys are more likely to help. And let's say Belgium, that they do like 1% on defense. Yes. Okay. I think people are massively misunderstanding Trump. And here's the thing. Here's the real deal, the real thing. That if Europe is super weak, NATO, but the non-US NATO is super weak, and it's relying upon America to protect them, the real problem is that if there's a significant conflict, and Ukraine qualifies as a significant conflict, the significant conflict comes in, they'll be entirely dependent, and I mean entirely, in a functional way, dependent. They can sort of like chase line, we're here too, run alongside the U.S. forces, we're also here, but entirely dependent on U.S. military action to defend them, or we'll have to resort to nuclear weapons. Because that, and if the U.S. has other problems, China, at the same time, or if we fully commit to a war in Poland or someplace, that might leave us so weak to look weak, if not actually weak, that then China does something. Then there's serious problems. But if NATO is, which has a larger, the European portion of NATO has a larger population than the U.S., and at least used to be mostly industrialized nations. Now, I know they've been trying to deindustrialize, try to become consumer nations that rely upon industrialization in other parts of the world, mostly anti-European parts of the world, Russia, China. But which is a mistake. You're now dependent upon your enemies. But you have, but if you've actually spent something like 5% of your GDP and industrialize and have real armies, then it'll be more like a balanced situation in that, yes, let's say Poland is attacked, or I think Turkey. We brought Turkey into NATO because of the Cold War. Turkey was a dictator, Erdogan, who's jailing people. Oh, well, wait a minute. That's what you're. No, Turkey should be in the EU. They're just behaving like other EU. Jailing their political opponents. So never mind. They're doing just like what Germany and Romania and Britain and France are doing, is jailing their political opponents. So yeah, Turkey fits in NATO and in the EU for sure. But if there's a war that breaks out, the U.S. will be there to help out. It'll be part of it. It won't be the heavy lift, doing the main thing for everybody. It'll be doing help, not carrying the main load. And that it can afford to do. So yes, if that 5% of your GDP is effectively spent on military, not just calling something a military expenditure that really isn't much of a military expenditure, kind of thing. Because I know at times the Germans, we upgraded all of the schools for soldiers' children in Germany, and that cost however many millions of dollars. Well, fine, but that doesn't help your defense. That's not a defense expenditure, just because it's for children of soldiers or something. It's camouflaging other things. So the point is that NATO needs to carry its balance of the defense, and then the U.S. can easily help out. Like I say, so that's the important part. And Trump knows this. Trump knows that if Europe is mostly doing it on its own and only needs a bit of support from the U.S., well, we can handle that. But if so that's the thing. Okay. Yahtzees are okay. Hello, Greek guy. I think it's Greek. Yahtzees are running the EU. What they failed to do with boomsticks are accomplishing with money. Well, I think they're authoritarians. I don't know that they're Yahtzees, but yes. What spaceships? The average American can't afford to buy a carton of eggs. Well, look, eggs have come down. We can afford them now again. Don't know about Nigeria, but those filthy penguins on McDonald's Island are preparing to invade on the USA and Trump. Well, the Arctic Ocean, or the Arctic Sea, or whatever, I guess it's more of a sea than an ocean, is becoming a significant battleground. And although I love talking and playing on Hearts of Iron because I have a world map, the U.S. and Russia are less than 10 miles apart, because there's two islands out there, and we own the small island, they own the big island, and in winter you can, at least some winters you can walk across the ice pack, or it's like even like 2 or 3 miles apart or something. It's really a short distance. So up in Alaska area, we basically touch Russia. So the U.S.-Russian borders are very close up there, and there is strategic needs up in the north. Let's see. Tanks are slow, bulky, and expensive and obsolete now. We got drones equivalent firepower. I disagree. Tanks are indispensable. Indispensable. Italy takes a prize for the most useless army in World War II. These are the major ones. I would agree with it. British kicked them in Ethiopia. we kicked their butts in Albania. Yes, okay, now yes, you are. Greek, pretty much useless. Yes, you did very well in Albania. And hello, um, I'm just seeing Emil Friedberg. This is Panzer Corps 2. Sorry I didn't see your post earlier. Rearmament programs with commercial companies that are milking the government is quite bad for the future of the state. It can result in both in debt and next to zero fighting power. Yeah, state arsenals can work. It's a balancing question. Um, you've played enough computer games to know that continue with Ragar, that either the U.S. gets in fully or not. There's no helping a little. So the U.S. would either need to get dirty or not at all. Well, I disagree. Um, I disagree. Gosh, that's an after. Yeah, it was, almost 2 months ago. I had a rather bad cold, and I'm still dealing with the cough. I'm not like feeling sick, but every morning I wake up with a lot of phlegm in my lungs. Okay, so I think we've done most. So that's sort of the end of the rant, but let's continue playing here. All right, okay. So let's looking for that lost unit. Okay, I guess it's not up here. Maybe there might be something over here. Or there's 2 more lost units, so maybe something down here. We'll see if we can find them. Okay, well. A lot of our mechanized forces are here, but they can swing around. This is Cyrenaica. This is the 1940 Italian invasion into what the British call the Western Desert. So this is the opening moves of North Africa. Is what this is. Guys are pretty weak, but I am still a bit more concerned about the tanks. We have all of our tanks are over there. I'm going to wait just a little bit. Well, okay, they're moving slow through the sand. A wasp. I guess that's a flame-throwing Bren gun carrier. Yeah, I've got sort of disorganized here, I'll fully admit. Okay, you come here. We're going to fly over, bomb you. Good, took that down by 4. Well, hurt them a bit. Now, march you into the desert. You come here. You them down a little bit. We're gonna escort this guy because I think it's, well, probably needed. Not sure. Oh, well, he's way back there. Okay, I'm gonna risk it just to eliminate an air unit. Yes, we're playing as Italy. Nope. Thought it'd be too easy to play as Britain. We've got anti-air there, so we'll risk being in the trucks. Force, hold, artillery backup, and whatnot. And I'm playing on the middle difficulty on the general difficulty. So not making it super hard or anything, but I've got 2 of those flame things. Okay, lovely. You know we want you way south here, so let's. I don't have to think about that one. Have me boxed in here for the moment. Just to get the we're gonna fly you over to here. You over to here. Okay, well, first another one down. 2 British air units down. Where are your artillery? Artillery is, yes, we have the artillery. It's coming slowly. It's back here. So we're gonna reinforce that piece there. Hope they don't lurch out at me. But we have, oh damn, okay, we undo that. We're going to just stay right where we are because that is under our anti-aircraft umbrella. Suppress that a bit. Okay, well, I think this may be too far away for their fighters to get it, so we will try this again. These guys will move up to here. These guys will come to here. Suppress them, hopefully even more. No. 1 for 1. Give them some. These guys will move here so that they have mutual artillery support in case the infantry come back. Now down here. I got all of my units out from being trapped, cut off. And you're definitely right that artillery is needed to take these towns. That's why we've got 2 up here and a couple over here. But it's also good to try to limit their air force. Basically halfway done here. Oh, that was painful. Well. The table's on him. Yeah, the flamethrowers. Don't know that they actually had them. I mean, like in 1940. I'm not talking sometime in the war, but yes. I don't know if there's somebody out here. I think I would have spotted them from the air, so I'm guessing some of the lost units are out in the desert. Well. Let's reinforce these guys. These guys can come up here and some. Okay, now that they're suppressed, let's all right, well, they're heavily damaged. They have not moved. Okay, will risk it. He's now out. May get destroyed, but it's just an L3. We need two. That's too much. We'll just do regular reinforcements there. Wow, that really hurt a lot more than expected. I see that is currently empty. Well, let's go for it. We got one of the main things. We need to still capture Fort Solom over here. Okay. And not a lot of turns left to do that. So, yeah. Wonder if we're going to fail. Okay, well, these guys survived. Don't know what happened to the... flamethrowers. Close. Well, gotta think here. Gotta think. I need more panzers, more good. We got a bot over on Twitch. Arno, if you want to take care of it. Oh, goody, we didn't even kill that. Okay, well, we're going to use... We need to reinforce him. there. And nothing there other than a little bit of suppression. They can come to here in Home Park. You got artillery back up there. What would we, how would we, we can get to here. This will give them anti-tank backup. Okay, good anti-air coverage. Thank you, Arna. They took it back, but we can take it back from them. Probably pretty easy. No, they can't. Let's use you here. Figuring some of the lost units are out over here. Okay, decent. Oh, we should have done this first. These guys here can, yeah, attack with the wrong ones there. Okay, well, that. Got him. Got him, got him, got him, got him. Okay, we're gonna risk that in the truck. These guys are going to... Very good, very good. We're going to put the squeeze on them. And we took it. Wow. Up. I'm up. Yeah, these engineers will be useful, so we'll get them to there. These guys are a problem. Let's get the artillery up to... Okay, this is anti-aircraft, so get the artillery up to support those guys. These are the anti-tank. Backed up with the artillery there, okay. That. All right, okay. There we go, there's one of the units. Trying to get the bonus. One of the lost boys. Come in here and down. Just sort of a no-brainer. What we'll do with that. They're done. And they're done. That's good. So, Gamnuska? Yes, we are taking on the Italian army here. Mildly successful. We only got a few turns left, and I got to take this, but we do have, shall we say, mobility issues. Because a bunch of our armed forces are literally just walking around. Hate, you know, however bad the desert is, and I'm sure it's really bad, I would hate to have to hike through the desert. Do we have no closer bases? No, it doesn't look like we do. So, well, fly over here and strafe these guys. Oh, good, it did. Occupy there so we don't lose it even temporarily. I don't know if they'll be able to see there or come after that. Okay. Well, now we would like to find, well, we found this unit. We'd like to find one more lost unit and definitely need to take that. Oh, well. But there's no lost units down here. Maybe over there. We'll see. Okay. Okay, it didn't do so well. Okay, we got the air base, which drove away my... Okay, we found one of the dispersed units. It's down here, or it's like out somewhere else? Well, yeah, but they had to rebase because he retook that. Okay, good. It allows me to come up here. Attack. Artillery support for the artillery. So now we have a new hero, Unyielding and a Provocateur. So Unyielding cannot be suppressed by enemy fire, and adjacent units will attack other. Okay, so we've got our extra hero for finding this. Very good. Hope that doesn't cost us the overall match. You. Well, maybe it'll be useful. Okay, well, let's see what we can do here. Why pick that unit? Must be reasons. Okay. They fell back. Take that. Not that it's going to be overly useful in the next 2 turns, but you don't know. Okay, well. Okay, well. Well, at least we can do is this. Okay, so we had done it just barely, a couple turns short. All right. Let's see. Excelente Generale. The first phase of the invasion has been completed, and we have successfully established control over the Egyptian border. Solom and its port will be crucial for our advance along the coast towards Sidi Barani. However, we must first gain control over the Haifa Pass, located in the desert hinterland south of the coast. Once we have secured it, nothing will be able to stop our advance. Okay, nothing, oh, sure. Excuse me. Continuing, prepare for deployment to the operational zones. Okay. So we have a victory. All right. Come on, come on. I have a reasonably fast computer. Seems to be taking a long time. Okay. Sidi Omar, Libya, September 13th, 1940. Generale, after triumphant conquest of Solom, it is time to open a second route to the coastal road. This way we can ensure, steady flow of troops from our Libyan outpost and proceed with the invasion. The theater of operations in this area south of Solom, and our target is the Hafaya Pass, right? The pass is the only crossing point through the escarpment, and the British have every interest in maintaining control. To split our supply lines, this must change, but there's more. British have placed powerful artillery batteries along the escarpment to control the coastal road. We don't know exactly where they are, but we know this threat must be neutralized. Okay. Capture the pass, destroy our three artillery units guarding the coast. Our troops are positioned at Sidi Omar, where we can also count on Dirt Airfield, while the detachment is joining the operations from the newly captured Fort Capuzzo. The plan is a simple one: cross the desert and surprise the British from all directions. But we have little time. We must prevent the enemy from reorganizing. It is imperative to capture the pass and eliminate the artillery as quickly as possible. The terrain is quite rugged, with steep cliffs and areas are impassable for vehicles, so managing armored units will be crucial. Several trails cut through the hills can also be used for ambush and maneuvers to strike directly at the enemy's rear. For this operation, we can only rely on Sidi Omar as a supply point. Be sure to use your troops wisely, as you will likely not be able to deploy reinforcements so easily. However, that is not all. The weather forecast predicts the possibility of sandstorms in the region, which could potentially ground Regia Aeronautica, as well as limit troop movements and enemy visibility. Currently, the likelihood of adverse conditions is low, but be prepared for anything as you choose your troops carefully. And talking about units, we managed to arm and supply the new M1139 medium tanks. It's ready for deployment at your will. That is all, Generale. Good luck. Why don't they say Buona Fortuna? Dismissed. Okay. Okay, limited deployment. This scenario, the number of available core unit slots is smaller than the size of your army. You need to decide which and which will move the rest to reserve. Okay. And AT support provides AC to friendly units attacked by the enemy's army units with hard target type. Okay. And lightning attack. Francisco Argento, lightning attack, immune to all types of support, fire, and readiness. Strikes first when defending. Okay, so we have some leaders, and we need to go down to 40 points. All right. Well, or 40 slots of points or something. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Well, this is better than this. It's new, sure, but this is better. Always. Why is this? Why is this so much compared to this? Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. Cancel, cancel, cancel. I think I'm looking at that wrong. Now let's compare. Oh, okay. Now we're looking at this. Okay. Oh, no, we're looking at this. Okay, no. This to this. Okay, so this one here. Okay, this is considerably better. We were talking earlier about Italy so unprepared. So, this is, oh, I don't know what caliber of like auto type cannon here, but this is the 37 or whatever millimeter gun, but they have to put it down in the hole because they don't know how to make a turret big enough, or don't have the machinery set up to make a turret big enough. The later model flips this. They get a bit bigger turret, and they put the main gun up on the turret and the supporting machine gun down here. But yeah, this has some awesome models, but it needs dynamic campaign and strategic map and industry. Well, no, I'll disagree with Gregor. This is not. This is a tactical game, and I try to evaluate all of these games that I play as to what they're trying to be. Like if I was playing Axis and Allies, and there's a good online version, or computer version that can be multiplayer. Well, that is obviously not trying to be realistic like Hearts of Iron. So I think this does what it's trying to do very well. It's we can like those flame. Well, this didn't exist as far as I know in early 1940. These vehicles were created, at least as far as I know. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. These are created as a response to the Long Range Desert Group and the follow on or coming on the SAS. But this isn't until 41 or 42 that these things show up. So this is out of date. I don't know about this motorcycle trike. I'm not saying it didn't exist. I'm just saying I don't know. I don't remember ever seeing any pictures of an armed trike. These guys, yeah, these armored cars are actually pretty good compared to some of their other armor. So, and so it's trying to be. This is the type of aircraft or artillery or whatever that was available to the Italians at the time. And so you get to deal with it. Okay. So we have what's already on the map is non-core units. I don't think is costing us anything. As in, 50 out of 40. We've got to reduce here. I think what we're going to do is move these and these to the rear, mainly because they're slow and walking. Those are motorized. These are motorized. Okay. Now we need to reduce 4 more points. We put our non-motorized artillery. Anti-tank and non-motorized anti-air. Okay, now we can deploy if we choose to. First, though, we're going to, when it's as cheap as it is, we're going to send in replacements. I know it said the possibility, though it said low. So, well, I'm just maybe... Oh, well, we do have an airbase there. Okay, so we can move up, take that airbase. So for a moment I was thinking this was going to be our only airbase way back here, and was going to, which was going to change my plans. But if we were to come here, now see about this. These have an upgrade, heavy weapons, well, 2 more slots. Oh, well, no, these are 3 slots as it is. Well, okay. Now we're not going to do the engineers. Let's look Belgasari versus standard guys. No improvement, or a little bit of defense improvement, but yeah, we'll do that. Get the guys. They ran everywhere in parades. They would sort of jog or whatever. Much slots. Okay, right. Well, better armor. Same movement. We want to give up a trike and get a little less infantry attack, but more armor attack and more ammo. And less initiative. Yeah, I can see you're in a box. Yeah, we'll do this. And even though it's sort of counting it as a downgrade, I think we'll do this. No, we'll leave the trike. We'll keep the trike. Okay. Well, we have engineers down here, so we'll put our other engineer unit here. I think those are the flamethrowers. Well, let's give them some artillery. giving them more artillery because down here we're going to have our air power, which will somewhat help with blasting the enemy out of positions. Both of these. Oh, we have the... Oh, yes, we have... Signing our heroes. Okay, AT support. So who do we want to give AT support to? Who isn't already an anti-tank gun? I guess maybe cancel. What heroes is he? Fast learner. Okay, yeah, let's assign AT support to that. Unitall strikes first when defending. Okay. That's pretty good for an infantry unit that might be broken up when being attacked. And so now he has flag killer, cheap replacement. So he's going to be a pretty good infantry unit there. Back over to here. Let's add unyielding and provocateur. Here. One tank coming up here. Okay. Who have we not assigned? Everybody's assigned? Pilot that needs to be assigned. Thought there was one more, but I guess not. Oh, we had that. Oh, God. Well, whatever. I don't know. Here. Here. The aircraft gun down here. I think this is going to be our main thrust. So let's put horses. Tank. Strike, reconnaissance, and the better reconnaissance here. There we go. I want to save it just before starting. Reserve and what's on the board, and this is it. Okay. Hello, there's the enemy. And that is an LRDG long-range desert group heavy truck. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Can you spot what they got wrong on it? Can you spot what they got wrong? Anybody out in chat? Jamnuska, Rhaegar, Arno? Greek dude? I'm sorry, it looks like A. Spot what they got wrong with this model? They got a lot right. that's sort of a Lewis gun, though I would say that this big bulky thing around the Lewis gun is an aluminum piece of metal that is a heat sink, like we have on computers, but it's also designed to draw air through it from because it goes over to the end of the muzzle. So the muzzle blast is to draw air from the back that's cooling. So, but they did sometimes early on have Lewis guns because they were raiding the depots for whatever they could find to put it. So, but yeah, and obviously if you have the pan magazine going on top, but that's not so bad. Well, it's a Chevy truck made in Canada. Even though Canada did, I think at the time, drive on our side of the road, it's supposed to have the driving controls over here. Because it's the British side drive, and the early trucks were acquired in Egypt. I don't know who they originally belonged to, and I don't know if they bought them from civilians or if they were government-owned trucks. But they went around and chopping the cab off and lightening it up as much as they could and turning it into this, because originally you can see the cab was originally there and have a conventional windscreen. But after the sort of success of it, they actually made more to suit in Canada and shipped them, all the way around Africa up for their use. But they were the right-hand drive, like in Britain, right-hand drive vehicles, not left-hand drive like the Americans or the Europeans do. So, yep, that is a oopsie. Not a major oopsie, but an oopsie. Yep, thought it was a plane ride. Uh-oh, a Cruiser Mark IV. Much better than what we had been facing. If they have ground to mess with us. Okay, well, that's that advance. So nothing moving out there, it looks like. Wait, where can our fighters get to? Just to there. So, use that one. What about you? What's your range? So, because I expect there very well may be British Air here or here. Let's escort. No. Well, escorting. Gonna risk being in trucks, but not way out there. They got some air suppression there. They got pushed back. Hmm. 16. Low. Low. They can come to here. Good. If I understand the escarpment, they can't attack from there, so before I do that, should I? No. We're falling back. Before we do that, let's move the artillery up. We'll move you up to here to cover as much the ground as possible. I think it's more important to try to take you out than to mess around with you. Okay, didn't quite take it out. Didn't think I was necessarily going to do that, but thought it a possibility, or at least hammer you hard. Nothing escortable, so I'm going to leave you back there. Okay, so we've fallen back here a little bit, but we're pushing up good here. Looks like, and we've sort of fortified this line over here. It's painful. Let's see if we can. You can come to here, which will allow our bombers to come to here. He can come up to here. Hopefully just, now that this is going to be a mass attack, so hopefully a little better outcome there. Good, and these guys will hopefully take them right out of there. Hey, Holiday Punch, it's been a while. How you doing? You have been liberated by the Empire of Japan. Oh, have we? Okay. So, there we go. Took out British aircraft. It will move that anti-air piece up. At least they're getting some suppression there. Okay, let's 142. Yeah, it's not a core unit, so we won't do that. Well, I think we'll just reinforce. And what's these guys? Oh, I'm doing good. Okay, well, you've got choices to make. It was a funny. Playing some Hoi 4. Oh, very good. them up, suppress them some. Okay, well, that's a bit of a help. These guys can go, knocking them back some. Good all around. Depending on the world, it's another what if Germany and Japan won World War II. Oh, okay. Right, all right, so he can strike there. What we want to do here first is that. Up with this and this. If somehow we fully take this down, which we didn't, strikes on that, and we didn't even fully take it down there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Interesting that it thinks the armored cars, and they may not be wrong, but can do better than the tanks. Yes, a good, well-constructed what if can be very good game to play. Do we risk it? Yeah, I think we risk it because we've hurt their Air Force considerably. Should have maybe done that first, but still. Sandstorm looks like it's coming towards us here. One of the big guns we got to deal with. Engineers are weak in there. Okay. Well. Let's take our bombers. Not with them. Now if we come there, we're going to get artillery. Okay, well, these guys have already tanked, so these. Let me just check on something here. Okay, this is a pain. Yep, keep pushing them back. They're encircled now. Get a lot of air coverage there. Don't know if those are the big guns we need to take down, the 25 pounders, or something else. Not sure. They already shoot at aircraft? Probably did. Well, next to here. Very effective. Okay, and now he is also escorted, so that is good. Well, if we point that up in the sky, well, as good as I was hoping. Well, let's do it anyways. Coverage to everything around. All right. he made it out of the trap, but he had to fall way back. All right, well, we want to take this air base to be able to move our aircraft up, of course. Oh. He can't get up there, but he can't get to there either. He can. On war isn't really the best in the long run. Germany. Okay, just catch up. Frenchmen had more tanks than Germans. Yeah, they did. Though they weren't nearly as good. Numbers aren't always the best indicators of effectiveness. Well, yeah, I would say the French army in 1940 was the supreme army to win World War I. It was not the army to fight World War II. And so it very much saw the tank as a support element to the infantry. Well, yeah. How do I put this? I don't really think it I mean, obviously it matters in how quickly the victory happens. But had you had the whole premise was the Maginot Line, whether they thought it was impenetrable or just too costly to, is going to be costly to penetrate it in a strategic sense. And so they figured it was going to have to be pushed through Belgium. The forts like Ebenamal and the other defensive lines were going to slow the Germans up and allow the the Franco-British forces to move in and reinforce up there. So instead of fighting World War I with most of Belgium and a good chunk of what is 1940 France, some of it had started out as the German Empire, being occupied by the Germans, which a lot of French industries in the north, and Belgium had a lot of industry. That, if you could hold most of Belgium, hold most of France, and then have your big long attritional war, but have one in which you are attriting the enemy a lot more heavy than the enemies attriting you, like a 3-to-1 loss ratio. And if you had a 3-to-1 loss ratio, you'd bleed the Germans white. You just would. But I totally think the strategic development of Manstein's plan, through the Ardennes, cut the Allies off, was a brilliant move and shortened the campaign considerably. But even if the Germans did come through Belgium, I think it's clear that they still would have won. Forgetting the general's name. Another general, well before the fall of France, penetrates the Maginot Line quite effectively. So, and in a broad enough sense that they could have, pushed supplies and divisions through. So I think the overwhelming mobility and tactical concentration and responsiveness of the German armed forces is just going to win anyways. I was talking earlier before you got here, Holiday Punch, about the unpreparedness of governments back then and now for war. Britain, the BEF, was a relatively modern, effective, motorized fighting force. It was the professional army. And it could take on the British forces. But it wasn't large enough. It couldn't be everywhere. Which it did get strung out, partially because, trying to race into Belgium and hold there and other units. So it wasn't as concentrated as it could have been, in one force. So either you concentrate it and win in the concentration element, where it's concentrated, or you spread it out and get defeated in detail. But if you concentrate it, well, that just allows the Germans to maneuver around it. So, whether it's this game or, Panzer Corps 2 or real life or some other thing, if the enemy is 3 times my size and it's all, well, these are commandos. I don't know how well they do. This is long-range desert group, but infantry units. So again, I don't know. But if it's all, okay, I don't know, Chevy, I don't know. But if it's all, just walking infantry and it's all spread out, and I've got motorized forces that at the point of contact, I'm doing 2-to-1, 3-to-1, even though their whole force is 3 times my size, and I'm able to flexibly maneuver, when to attack, when to, oh boy, my God, they're coming heavy hard. Okay, fall back, and be able to move out of the way of a slow hammer blow. Yeah, I'm going to be able to take that on. I think, and I don't think I'm like such a better wargamer than many of you. I don't think that at all. I just happen to be, the one streaming here and people watch me. And you can evaluate my abilities mostly against the AI. But if I have a flexible, motorized, heavy firepower kind of force, and you've got a, even if it's somewhat rigid with the, fortifications, but even if it's not that, but you've got a, a force that we have a big enough battlefield, and I don't have to like hold some position that you can just come in and hammer. I think I'll defeat you every time. If you've got towed artillery, or horse-towed artillery and walking infantry, and particularly, this is the thing that this game here and most or many war games do not simulate, is ammunition. These guys here, these Ascari del Acello, which, these are, well, they could be North Africans, could be Arabs, but the Italians used Eritrean Ascari. I think mostly it would be Eritrean or Somalis when they actually called it Ascari, but I'm not sure. I don't think they called Arab volunteers Ascari, but I don't know. But see, they have this truck symbol here. So they can have that truck there with ammunition. But if you're just walking, if you're moving around and you're walking, and yeah, I know they got wagons, or carts or whatever you want to say, but if you're limited to the ammunition that you're carrying, and another thing, that magazine is on the wrong side of the Sten gun, people. I don't know why they let these guys get away with this stupid stuff. But if you're just walking around, you only going to carry so much ammunition. And once you're done with the ammunition here in a modern world, you're done fighting, okay? Yeah, we can see a few cases of sometimes even effective bayonet fights that they're able to get in close, and there's some Brazilian group that fought off, I think it was some Germans in Italy that was some heroic battle that the small number of Brazilians were involved in, but they did very well. Yeah, okay, once in a while you can do that kind of thing, but mostly when your bullets are done, you're done. Now, so it doesn't matter if these guys are 3 times as good and have twice the firepower of these guys. If once those Sten gun magazines and those Enfields are empty of ammo, these guys can just push on and take them. However good, unless they're the super soldiers, they're going to be able to take them. So if we're looking at an army that isn't motorized, they're only going to, and even if we're not talking deserts, where's the supply dump that the wagons or the carts or whatever are going to have to go back, get those more ammunition and food and bring it up? And how much are you going to be able to do? And, all of that stuff versus a few trucks are going to be able to do, how much more ammunition delivery to the front, to the fighting component. And so if we really look at that type of warfare with an inferior numbers force, but motorized, coordinated, able to heavily put firepower on the enemy, I'm going to defeat the other guys. If they're equally as well trained, shoot just as well, and let's just say their officers are equally good at commanding their companies and their battalions. But it's just not going to matter if wherever I want to push, tanks show up, and in numbers that, if you're France in 1940, are going to overwhelm the support tanks that are there locally. So yeah, it's that kind of thing. So I'm not saying the Manstein strategy wasn't effective. Obviously it was, and I'm not saying it didn't shorten the Battle of France by a year even. But I don't see let's see what followed it. I kind of think the French should have probably extended the Maginot Line, considering the Germans went around it the same way they did in World War I. Okay, the Maginot Line. How do I say this? One problem with the Maginot Line is it gave France a defensive mindset. During the Napoleonic Wars, France had a very offensive mindset, which they took into World War I and didn't work out so well against machine guns and barbed wire and trenches. But that's part of the problem. I don't know if I would be a good real-life commander. I've never commanded troops in real battle. I might just panic and run away and be terrible. But obviously, I think I'm a relatively good, war game commander, that I can sit back and think and take my time and whatnot. If you understand, I'm not talking about the Middle Ages and other types of, where you got castles and such. I mean, it is partially there, but if you understand modern fortifications and what they're meant to do, which I don't know. I don't know enough about the Maginot Line and how, and I know about parts of it and some of it and seen photos, but I don't know. We can talk about things like deterrence. Oh, hey, there's a big wall facing us. Maybe we shouldn't attack them or something. But I'm politically deterrence. But once the war starts, fortifications should not be thought of, and this includes coming out of World War I, should not be thought of in the terms that they're going to defend you. They're just not. Now, and this isn't even me looking back in hindsight at the changes from World War I to World War II. Even if we're talking about fighting a World War I, Part 2 kind of thing, continuing the World War I tactics just with a little bit better, machinery and equipment and guns and whatever. You should not look at the Maginot Line as your defense. What you should look at the Maginot Line is the idea of shaping the battlefield. One. So if you have a hard to attack through positions, some hills or whatever, you reinforce it somewhat. So, it's harder to get through. And, so you're shaping the battlefield. And part of this, and this is an idea that Japanese castles during the samurai period, many of them, unlike European medieval castles, Japanese castles were designed with an obvious weakness. They specifically designed it as such. Why? Partially, it's the Japanese samurai ideal of actually wanting to have a battle, as opposed to just like, oh, we're impregnable. We're gonna wait out the enemy, and we got enough food, we got enough water. It's gonna take you 2 years to starve us out. So are you really gonna continue the war for 2 years? It's part of not wanting that. Not that those sieges didn't happen, they did. But it's the idea of also wanting to have the battle, but have it on terms that a smaller force can fight a larger force. So that, we can put enough force to defend the weak spot and they can only bring so much force against it, the weak spot. But it isn't like a, completely undefended. It's just the weaker spot there, so that we can, use whatever to have better forces at the time of point, at the point of impact. And so that's part of it. But also part of it is so that you know where the enemy's going to attack. So if everything looks super, difficult to attack, you don't know where they're going to attack. They can attack from any side at any moment because it's all equally hard to attack you. But if you know, oh, well, this is where it's going to be because everything else is near impossible, you can have your forces ready. That's sort of shaping the battlefield. Now, the other thing with modern fortifications is a tripwire, a delay. If all along the enemy front lines, all the artillery starts blasting off, well, where's the enemy going to attack? You're being, especially if we're looking at the scale of, France, at the border there in Belgium, they're attacking along the whole front line. What do? Here's the situation. You wait and watch and see where they're actually making progress to push through the Maginot Line, because you know that when they truly do concentrate enough forces, they're going to break through that line. And so then you can have plans to react, whether you immediately rush forces to the breakthrough and stop it, or go, oh, hey, good, come on through, come in at me, and then we cut them off, surround the forces after they breach through. And if you design the Maginot Line in such a way so that once you breach it, you can't, roll it up so much, meaning it defends from the side as well as from the front. So yeah, you breach it, but we're holding it to an arrow, however wide of a breach you've effectively made, and it's hard to widen it. So yeah, you can pour your forces through it, but then we can try to snap it shut. Have plans like that, right? So yes, if you think the Ardennes to modern motorized forces, they knew it was breachable in that you could get through it, but could you get through it with enough motorized forces, which is something new at that scale, and successfully supply and maneuver a large force through it? If yes, you have to watch that. If no, it's just going to be harassing attacks. A small group of tanks show up on the far side of the forest. No big deal, And so, they didn't know. And so this becomes a problem. But we don't see, even if we discount the fault of the Ardennes element of it, we don't see, at least in my mind, a plan to defeat the Germans using your shaped battlefield. Meaning, what we see is a plan to, if you will, rescue Belgium, defend Belgium. But it's purely establishing a defense line. Not, this is how we're going to do things. Because, Churchill, when the war breaks out, he gets the job as First Lord of the Admiralty. So, sort of the, the guy, the civilian in charge, if you will, whether you want to call Churchill civilian, mostly, but is in charge of the Admiralty. So he's focusing on that. When he later, once France is falling, and the Chamberlain government is falling, he's put in as prime minister. He's, flying to the French and asks, well, where are your reserves? Because, he doesn't, somewhere between need to know and, hey, I'm concentrating on, fighting the U-boats and whatever else, he finds out there is no reserves. The reserves have been deployed, in essence, to Belgium. Where had the French and or the British had a strategic reserve, a significant force, not just a division here, a division there, but multiple corps, an army that could be deployed. And it's often said, he who is the last to deploy his reserves wins the battle. So maybe you'd win the battle without deploying your reserves because you didn't need to. But, so defending the, the line there is they take the reserves in essence and move them to Belgium. So had they had a plan that, oh, hey, you can come through here, in essence, instead of racing the Germans to occupy Belgium, had they gone, oh, okay, we've got the Maginot Line. Well, those Germans, they're going to attack us. They're not going to attack along the Maginot Line because that's going to be hard. They're not going to come through that Ardennes force because that's just too difficult. They're going to have to come through Belgium. So why don't we let them come through Belgium? Oh, we'll put some, screening forces, some sort of delaying element there, but we're going to let them come through there and then punch north and cut off the German assault. That would have been, a plan. Now, would it have worked? Again, probably not against what we know of the, like I say, mobility and firepower and whatnot of the German forces. But that would have at least been a plan to defeat the German army. Like I say, it might not have worked, but it would have been a plan. And I don't see that looking back. And I'm not the best expert on, 1940, the Battle of France, or whatever you want to call it. And I've read some books on it, but that doesn't mean I'm the best expert. So, yeah. I still believe very much in fortifications. Like they're supposedly, building along the Baltic States / Russian border today. But if anybody out there, anybody, civilian or head of their military, believes that they're in any way going to defend the Baltic states, whatever they built, however much it gets built, if they're counting on that to defend the Baltic states, well, at least if you're, civilian, okay, maybe you've been lied to by the propaganda. But if you're the military, you're criminally liable for incompetence. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't build the fortifications. Doesn't mean that the fortifications won't help. You just look at those fortifications as a delaying tactic. Make sure that you can, and you man it. And so you can see where the real penetrations are, as opposed to just the, feint attacks, so that then your reserves can do something, whatever that is. Whether that's to decide to, we're going to use that line to be a slowdown to attack, to withdraw from the Baltic states, because maybe we think the Baltic states, with a war with Russia versus NATO, is too vulnerable, because you have that former East Prussia pocket, and you figure they're going to be able to punch through hard enough that it's too long of a line, whatever. So we're going to have forces up there just in case, because you need some forces there to show that you're actually, NATO's going to fight for it, meaning it's not just the Baltic states nations. And maybe the real big attack, if they hold something like Ukraine in the future, the real big attack may come into Romania. or into Poland or some other place. And so you may be able to punch out of the Baltic states as a a spoiling attack. Give the enemy, it may not be your strategic blow enough to defeat Russia, but enough that they have to send real reinforcements up there to deal with your spoiling attacks and not reinforce their main attacks. So you have to kind of think of it that way, at least that way. Let's finish up the thing. So I do kind of wonder how the British population government would do if 300,000 men that were trapped in Dunkirk were destroyed or captured. It's an interesting what if. I don't think it would have mean Britain surrenders. It might mean Britain loses Egypt. And in essence, much of the Mediterranean. Because if you lose Egypt, you're probably going to lose Malta. You may or may not lose Gibraltar. You probably you may lose, Palestine, Iraq, that kind of thing. I think the British were hardened enough that and since Britain did swap out their government because everybody saw that they failed, that Chamberlain's government and military strategy failed, so they swapped over to Churchill, and Churchill kept them fighting. So it definitely would have changed the shape of the early days of the war, but I don't see it causing Britain to collapse. Didn't the Allies think the USSR would surrender in a few months when the Germans first attacked? I don't have a good knowledge of what they thought was going to happen. I don't know. I don't have a good thing. Okay, not going to lie. I feel like building a bunker should be on the priority list of any dictator that's planning on doing horrific things. Okay, I don't know exactly what you're meaning that. And by the way, Mittler, okay, kicked the bucket in my game now. So yeah, okay, good. Okay, guys, well, I think we're going to end the stream here. I want to thank you all for hanging out with me today. Holiday Punch, Arno, Jamnuska, Greek Dude, if you're still around, Ragar, thank you all for hanging out. I really do appreciate you guys helping me with my therapy here and doing the live stream. We will be back tomorrow with some War Thunder. So hopefully you'll join us, either join us and play or just join in and hang out as we play and sometimes talk about interesting philosophies and things. So hope to see you then, everyone. So thanks so much. See you next time. Have a good day or evening.